Imagine being in a crossroads in your marriage. Things are not going very good, but you want to work it out. You want to see if you can save your marriage, and you want to devote yourself to it. But at the same time, your logic brain tells you that you have to protect your financial future just in case it doesn't work out. You have to protect your assets just in case it doesn't work out. Maybe you have to protect some future assets or earnings that you'll make just in case it doesn't work out. And so what can you do? And a post-nuptial agreement is a possible way that you can do that. So what's a post-nuptial agreement? It is a contract that is entered into after the marriage, but before you go and get divorced, between you and your spouse, that spells out how you're going to divide up your assets and your debts, and maybe even issues like alimony, anything that you might need to take care of if you were to go through a divorce, before you go through a divorce. And so this can be beneficial if you're in the situation where you're trying to save your marriage, but you also want to make sure that you're protected just in case, and you need to have the ability to devote yourself to your marriage. So what makes a good post-nuptial agreement? Because Florida courts are known for being tough on agreements and looking for ways to set these agreements aside. For example, imagine that you have this post-nuptial agreement, you sign it in 2005, and then things happen in your relationship, and then it's 2019 and you're going through a divorce, and you're asking the court to enforce your agreement. Sometimes judges might look at that agreement because of the way life has treated you and your spouse in the last 14 years, and they may think it doesn't look so fair to them. So we have to recognize that judges are human in that way. So when we're doing post-nuptial agreements, we want to make sure that we do everything we can so that if they need to be used in the future, that the judge is going to ratify them, agree with them, and make them the law of your divorce. So to do that, step one, we want to make sure that we're totally transparent with finances before you go through before you sign and execute a post-nuptial agreement. And so what we'll do is we'll actually do the same discovery process that you would see in a divorce. We'll take that and we'll use that before parties sign a post-nuptial agreement. Certain financial documents, bank account statements and IRA, 401k, deeds and stuff like that, at the beginning of divorce are required that people exchange. We have our clients who are signing post-nuptial agreements, we have them do that same process. So it's abundantly clear that everything's above board and everyone knows what's going on before they sign the agreement. Step two, let's make sure that the language in our post-nuptial agreement spells everything out and has consideration, that it's a fair, it's a bargained for exchange. There's an old contract principle that says that there has to be consideration in agreement, and that means that if you're giving up something, you got to be getting something. It doesn't have to be a super fair deal. There's got to be something. And so we want to make sure our agreement covers all those angles so that another spouse can't come back later and say, oh no, when I signed that agreement, it was so unfair. I was completely under duress. So judge, you shouldn't adopt and ratify that agreement. And step three, we want to be transparent with the actual execution of the agreement. And so that means we want to have the agreement signed under oath in front of a notary if we can. If we're representing the wife, for example, we want the husband to actually sign that agreement in another place under a different, with a different notary. In a lot of cases, we may want to have the whole thing videotaped. I mean, videotape is so cheap in 2019. Why not bring a videographer or even set it up, yourself in the office with an iPhone to videotape the exchange? Because how would you get out of a post-nuptial agreement? Well, like we talked earlier, one way is to say, listen, this is a totally horribly unfair agreement and I was under duress. And what better way to show that somebody wasn't under duress than to have them on videotape at the time of the signing, maybe even smiling, drinking coffee, showing that they were not under duress, but they knew what they were doing. They understood what the score was. So that's the basics of a post-nuptial agreement. And the key, the major benefit of doing this, besides protecting assets and future assets, if you do it right, then one, you'll be able to go back into your marriage feeling comfortable and confident that you don't have to worry about screwing up. You have a safety net in case things don't work out, so you can devote yourself to trying to salvage your marriage and hopefully rehabilitate it and make things better. And two, if things don't work out, if you do it right, you can have everything spelled out so that if you do have to file for divorce later, you can simply attach the postnuptial agreement to your petition for dissolution of marriage and say, hey, judge, we have everything worked out. So we don't need to go through that long rigmarole that you normally see in a divorce with all that fighting and stuff. We have it all worked out. We have a contract, judge. I'm just asking you to ratify that contract and make that the law of our case.